Hey everyone, it's Phil. I'm sitting at Starbucks here in Harajuku at a place called Tokyo Plaza. Starbucks is on the 6th floor here, and it's a good place to hang out. They have a nice outside area where you can relax and look cool with your amazing sunglasses and philosophize a bit. So let's see, philosophizing. Today I thought I'd talk a little bit about lifestyles and lifestyles in general and potential lifestyles in Tokyo. So my lifestyle here in Tokyo is fairly laid back. I work about 15 hours a week, and I love my work. If I didn't work, I'd be annoyed. In fact, anytime a vacation comes around, I'm restless and feel a bit annoyed because I love my work. So my job is teaching, and that teaching comes in various forms. I'm a macroeconomics professor at Gakushuin University, and I have a small group of students, all of them fairly good English speakers and quite intelligent, especially in respect to economics. And they're a lot of fun to teach. They actually teach me a lot of things. I also teach critical thinking or rational thought, both at Todai, or the University of Tokyo, and a private class at Nichibei Kaiwa Gakuen. I also do corporate training, and that's a lot of fun. So I'm able to interact regularly with many Japanese. I've been learning a lot about the culture here, and I enjoy it very much. So yeah, there's just something about the Japanese psyche that is relaxed, laid back, non-hostile. So it's a great place to live. And since I have only 15 hours of work a week, I have a lot of time to pursue my own interests and hobbies. Recently, some of my hobbies have been exercise is one. So I do a lot of cycling, and last year for Golden Week I cycled 615 kilometers down to Kyoto, and Golden Week's coming up again. I haven't yet decided what I'm going to do, but it might be another longer trip. This time my son Tim is in town, and we might take a cycling trip together. Yesterday I woke up and started running in the beautiful sunshine here in Tokyo, and ended up 27 kilometers later in Yokohama. That was a good run, but my legs are a bit sore today from that. My other hobbies include party organizing and going to parties. I'm able to meet a lot of interesting people, not only Japanese, but a lot of interesting foreigners here. I spend some time on Facebook since I have 2,000 plus friends, but Facebook is not necessarily where I spend the majority of my time as some of my other friends do. I don't have a television. I gave up television about 10 years or so ago, and I think that has allowed me to be more productive in many different ways. You'll see me carrying around my headphones to my Nano, and you may assume that I'm always listening to music, but I seldom listen to music. I listen to music when I'm dancing, and I do enjoy dancing from time to time. But when I'm on my bicycle or I'm running, I'm always listening to philosophy or science podcasts. And for me, that's quite enjoyable. Other hobbies include photography. I do photography both of figures and of nature, and I also do graphic art, emergent of some of those photos. When I was younger, I worked quite hard. I was working 2 jobs at times. I was working maybe 50, 55 hours a week. When you're young, that's a good thing to do. I change jobs often. I think a couple years ago I added up all the different jobs I've worked for cash, and it totaled more than 45 different jobs. So I've worked jobs such as teaching piano, call center supervisor, Greyhound bus driver, carpenter. I built 2 of my own houses in the U.S. A baker in 5 different bakeries, computer programmer, a writer and a rewriter. So yeah, I think that living life with variety is important to one's satisfaction of one's life. So I think I've done that quite well. Yeah, if I die tomorrow, I have very few regrets. So my life has been quite interesting, quite good. When I was younger, I got married. I got married at age 23, which is a bit young to get married. But in retrospect, it was a good thing to get married when I was young. I was married for 9 years, was divorced, and then I went back to school after my divorce. Since I was hyperactive when I was young, it was difficult for me to study in my 20s. However, after turning 30, I mellowed out a bit, and when I went back to school, I was able to focus on my studies much more, and I did quite well in school. I got a bachelor's degree in philosophy and a master's in education. Having a degree, especially this master's degree, is quite an advantage in Tokyo, where degrees are given much more weight than perhaps they are in the U.S. I'm able to find a job nearly anywhere, at least teaching English or other types of content. And yeah, I don't regret going back to school. However, going back to school was not for the sake of going back to school and finding a good job. I enjoyed school. It was the process that I enjoyed. It was a process that counted, and I had a great time. And while I studied hard on weekends, I did a lot of socializing, met a lot of friends, went dancing, and it was a great time. So I graduated when I was a bit older, when I was 38. I just turned 52 on Tuesday. So when I graduated, I came to Tokyo, and I came to Tokyo with $200 in my pocket, no job, but was able to secure a job in about 5 days. So having that master's degree and having pretty good grades contributed to the ease at which I get jobs now. Money. Money has never been an issue. I could be making much more money, but my free time is very valuable to me, and I've seen too many of my friends too focused on accumulating money and the things that money can buy, and based on their degree of happiness, I'm not interested. So once you get into the mindset that money is the measure of a human, then there's no end to the number of things you'll want to accumulate. You'll always be comparing yourself to someone else who has more money or has more toys, and that's not a very good game to get involved in. Relationships are much more satisfying than toys or money. Relationships are basically where it's at. While I doubt that I'll ever get married again, I've had very many satisfying relationships in Tokyo, and I'm still friends with most of my ex-girlfriends. I don't hesitate to start a new relationship when a good opportunity arises, but I don't like to have more than one relationship at one time. So that's a little bit too psychologically confusing for me. I'm a very simple boy. So one girl at one time is quite sufficient. I have 3 kids. My oldest son is almost 28. My second son is 26, and my daughter's 24 now. I don't know how I would feel if I had not had my children at a young age. Perhaps I'd want to be married again. Now that I do have kids and am in constant communication with them, and I find that very satisfying. They're great kids, and I can't imagine not having them. Perhaps this is one reason why I'm not ready to get married again anytime soon and start a new family. I'm pretty content with the 3 kids I have, and I have some great memories, and I'm looking forward to more memories of hanging out with them in the future. I'm also perhaps looking forward to grandkids, though I don't want to think about that right now. So in my opinion, a good life is a life that's not too stressful. I'm fortunate, perhaps, in the fact that I'm unmarried now and don't have the stresses associated with a family. Though when I did have a family, it was quite enjoyable, and I don't really remember the stressors, but I know that being married does carry its own types of stresses. I don't worry too much about much of anything. A lot of people are concerned about their diets. I do a lot of exercise, but I never worry about what I eat too much. My diet has changed into more of a Japanese diet here. In the U.S., I used to drink a lot of sugary sodas, but here I'm drinking a lot more green tea and water, and my diet of various foods is quite healthy. I don't eat only Japanese foods. I like Mexican food and Italian food yet, but I eat them in moderation, and I don't worry about dieting too much. In the summertime, I often slim down, but I slim down not by choosing this or that diet, but simply by not eating. So I reduce the number of calories I intake, and it's fairly easy to slim down if you're exercising regularly. My lifestyle is a bit high risk in some ways. I do a lot of cycling into the mountains and at speeds some people would consider a bit too dangerous. And I ride in traffic, and I do some things that are perhaps a bit foolish, but I think I have a little bit of wisdom that allows me to either stay out of trouble or extract myself from trouble if trouble ever arises. So that's not that much of an issue for me. Excitement keeps me psychologically healthy, and risk is a stimulant that allows me to feel satisfied about perhaps the death I avoid. Perhaps this is a bit irrational, but I don't fear death to the point that if I were to die tomorrow, I can't say I would regret it. So I'm 52 now. Life has been really interesting, really good. I still have a lot of projects in the pipeline, far too many to ever complete. And I guess that's my weakness, is completing things I start, or starting things I imagine. So I've changed my job quite regularly throughout my life, with about 45 different jobs I've worked for money. And I've changed my relationships to a degree that may sound playboyish, but I'm comfortable with that. And I've changed my hobbies on a regular basis. In the U.S., my hobbies included sculpture and piano. I haven't touched a piano keyboard in a long time. Sometimes I go to the electronics store just to sit down and play once in a while, but that's no longer a hobby. Now I'm much more into photography, as I mentioned, and into art. I'm also into socializing quite a bit more. Most people are surprised when they hear I used to be shy when I was younger. I was a country boy, and it was quite difficult for me to interact with people. I was an athlete in high school, but I could not talk to girls. There were a few girls who indicated their interest in me, but I didn't know how to get from A to B, much less A to Z. Some people suggest you can't change your personality. I strongly disagree with that. I was dysfunctionally shy when I was young. I could not talk to the girls at all. So, when I was divorced at age 32, and I lost my best friend, my wife was also my best friend, I decided that was enough of being shy and having just a small group of friends. And I decided I was going to talk to one girl, one strange girl every day. And the first day I went to campus at the big university, I saw a very attractive girl sitting on a bench, and I mustered up the courage to go talk to her. And she was fortunately quite friendly, and she became one of my best friends for the duration of my university there, and I still see her from time to time when I go back to my university town. Well, the next day I met another girl, the following day another, and after 3 to 6 months I felt much more confident. I was socializing much more. However, even after I came to Tokyo, I still had a difficult time speaking in front of groups of people. So I started out teaching one-on-one, but was asked later to teach larger classes, which were a bit intimidating, actually. Well, after teaching larger classes for a couple years, I felt more confident, and then was asked to actually teach speech. If you knew how nervous I was and how many times I froze up when giving speeches until I was over 30 years old, you'd be surprised to know that I teach speech very confidently now. So you can change your personality. All it requires is to put yourself into a new context, a new environment, an enriched environment in which you are forced to become the person you want to be. So it requires you to plan who you want to be and to go out of your way to force yourself into those contexts that will mold you into that person you want to be. It's just a matter of courage in most cases. I can teach people the formula, but unless you're willing to go through the actions, go through the motions, and instantiate the formula by placing yourself into situations in which you can learn, in which you can make mistakes first, of course, and then in which you can learn from those mistakes. Unless you can do that, you're not going to go anywhere. I'm very content with the person I've become. I still have some rough edges, but yeah, I'm working through those also. So life is good. So perhaps this has been a rambling account of who I am and how I become who I am. But I hope it encourages some of you who have many years ahead of you to anticipate a life that will be much more mellow and comfortable and interesting later on if you place yourself in interesting circumstances and force yourself to become a better person each year. So that's my hope for all of you.